Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, the host and producer of the show, but he is the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Monday, December 30th, right before the New Year's, and we're here to talk about the New York Yankees with our guy, Joel. A couple moves happened, Joel, since the last time we spoke. We broke down the Cody Bellinger trade when it happened. But after that, the Yankees made a couple more moves before the new year. They traded Jose Trevino, catcher, to the Cincinnati Reds, acquired Alex Jackson and Fernando Cruz, relief pitcher, and then they went and signed a first baseman, Paul Goldschmid. They signed him to a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. We're starting to see this plan B take place, Joel. But before I get to anything else, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You have a good holiday, Ryan?
I did. It was good to spend some time with the family, take some time off. But like this world we live in with sports never stops, and we continue to go roll along, man. How about you?
Yeah, well, I hardly ever honor my vacation, but I decided to honor it. That's why you haven't seen me for a few weeks. And, without sounding too corny, my kids are away at college. And so when they come back, it means a lot to me to spend time. Time is precious. And when I get to spend time with my kids, it's really precious now because they're not in my life every day. They're off doing their own things. So.
Yeah, it's I could feel the same way when I went away to college first time for my mom. She appreciated the time I got to come home and spend with her, and I get to enjoy it even more now. And being away from home for a while when I first got into my professional career, and then coming back to New York, I cherish it even more. Just like it's well said by you. But listen, we got to talk about some of these things that the Yankees are doing. Paul Goldschmidt, it's funny when we talked about Cody Bellinger being traded to the Yankees, I was like, Joel, what are they going to do at first base? Because Cody could play first, but he's also an outfielder. He's a very damn good center fielder. Could play left field, maybe potentially. But what's going to happen at first? There's still some big names. There's Pete Alonso, Paul Goldschmidt, and you threw Goldschmidt's name out there, and I was like, I didn't really think about that. And then they go and do it. What did you make of the move?
So first of all, I think that one of the things Yankee fans should hope is that the NL Central was better than it looked last year because every freaking player they've gotten is from the NL Central. Bellinger, Devin Williams, Cruz, and Goldschmidt. So that's like one thing. The other thing is I mentioned Goldschmidt because the Yankees kind of have a little bit of a history of that veteran player they hope has some legs left, and it hasn't worked a lot, like a Tulowitzki, a Euclid, the Matt Holliday kind of player. It works spectacularly. Raul Ibanez kind of guy. This is New York. I think they like the idea of somebody who's been there, done that, has some calluses, and can handle that. And they always hope that that the bright lights, big city, important games will bring back kind of something to the player. I will say this. I made a lot of calls. I know I wasn't supposed to be working on my vacation. I made a lot of calls to people who were in the NL Central last year. And I've got to say, to a man, they all thought Goldschmidt had something left. That the second half of the season was more reflective of the player, that he's not MVP Paul Goldschmidt, but that Yankee Stadium will play well to him, that he's still an above average defender, that he'll hit the ball in the 3-4 hole with a runner on second base with 2 strikes and be a real professional player. That came out a lot also, what a pro he is, how prepared he is. And so when you think about, Ryan, one of the things we talk about on this show a lot over the time we've done it is you don't live in the world you want to live in, you live in the world of reality. And the world of reality are the players who are actually available and the budget the team has. And I think that the Yankees, while never screaming out, this is our budget, have screamed out, this is what Hal Steinbrenner will allow them to spend, which I think is probably in the 290 someplace. So they have a little flexibility, but are going to stay on the 301, which is the Steve Cohen tax, which is the top luxury tax number for this year. And in that world, I think that they had to isolate and decide, is that Carlos Santana or Paul Goldschmidt? And, they could have done other things. They might have, they could have, Josh Bell signed for $6 million yesterday. He would not have been as good as either of those two guys. They could have tried to bring back Anthony Rizzo for $5 or $6 million. But in the, world they want, the one thing that stands out about Santana And I think they're going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to hope some of this comes internally, is Santana is an on-base guy. The Yankees are going to really lack in some on base unless some things change. They lost Soto, who's the great on base guy. Him and Judge are the two best, but the rest of the lineup not very good on base unless those 60 games where we saw Austin Wells at like 390 on base, or the postseason when we saw these disciplined at bats from Anthony Volpe, that will be on base percentage. So I think it came down to Goldschmid or Santana in about a $12 million slot for what they could do. And I think they pick the right guy because I would roll the dice on cares, plays hard, great background, inspired by this, had the very good ending to the season. And now I could add, I talked to many people who are in the NL Central, and I am still not at the guy who says he's done.
Right.
And so if you lower your expectations, can he be a high 700 OPS, hit some homers, field the position, as the Yankees try to be a different kind of team and a better defensive team overall? By the way, and he falls into the category, Ryan, we also talked about all year. He is not fast, but he is a superb base runner. He is not fast, but he is a superb base runner for a team that ran the bases terribly last year. Cody Bellinger, who is fast, is a superb base runner. We do see what they're trying to do here. And so, yes, I like the Goldschmid move.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his Fangraphs chart, he's got a 4.5 speed rating on there. He had a 716 OPS, but you pointed out to his second half and how much better he played in that second half, and that maybe there's something still there. The thing I noticed with Paul Goldschmid is he goes the other way, right? As a right-handed hitter, which is important.
I think Yankee Stadium will play for him in the way that Bush didn't.
Right. And that's going to be important, I think, for him and being able to take the ball the other way and use that short porch to his advantage. And let's not forget, he's Gold Glove winner. He could play a hell of a first base for the Yankees, something that they
probably come down a grade.
Right.
He came from a very high grade. And again, he takes the game seriously. So what does take the game seriously mean? Take the game seriously means base running, defense. All the stuff that we talked about post-Dodgers and I wrote about in that big column, which is, it takes a mental fortitude, besides a physical fortitude, to care about doing things right every day. Like, there was some commiserating in the last week when Gleyber Torres signed with the Tigers about like, oh, like it's like all of a sudden the girlfriend actually breaks up with you and you're like, oh, I kind of liked her, and all the moments I didn't hate her, right? I liked her. And I think Gleyber was a very good guy, and I think he's a good offensive player, and when he uses the whole field, a very good offensive player, because it changes his on base. He has deeper at bats, he walks more, he strikes out less when he's not getting pull hungry. And he could potentially help the Tigers. But he did a lot of things. You know who Gleyber Torres reminded me of? I'm sorry, I went off field here a little.
You're okay.
Yeah. And I always make basketball analogies. Gleyber Torres was Julius Randle to me.
Okay.
Like, there was a lot of good stuff, but your ceiling was limited because of what he didn't do technically well all the time. And, and it just, like, whatever you think of Karl Anthony Towns, and he's not my favorite player, the ceiling gets higher because of who he is. Gleyber Torres was a guy, and I know you could say, well, they went to the World Series last year, but he's exposed, right, for the stuff he's not good at in the biggest games. And because baseball is tough, all sports are tough mentally to do well every day. You have to make a dedication that these little things that nobody gives you, plaudits in a parade for, will get done, because they are the mortar and the grout that builds what is a championship team.
Right.
And like someone like Goldschmid is really good at that. Carlos Santana. If that's why I thought he was an interesting choice. Also, very good defender, very good base. Again, not fast, but a good base runner. Great in the clubhouse. And so I just think I personally, nothing replaces talent. But if you're going to be a championship team, you have to have it all. And the Yankees could afford to have it all. how many times I say last year, like when people would say, well, the most important thing is to be able to hit or get on base or hit for power. Of course, I get it. A home run's a sure run, at least one. But that doesn't mean the other stuff doesn't matter.
No, yeah, the
And
other
it
stuff
certainly
it
doesn't
showed in the
matter
World
for,
Series.
and it all matters if you're going to be the last team standing.
Absolutely. It showed itself in the World Series. It reared its ugly head. It was something that you were hitting on all year long with the Yankees in 2024 is Ryan, while they're putting up these incredible stats and they look like a great team, there's just that ugly truth that's coming out and that's going to happen. And it did. It came out in the worst way.
The dorsal fin was always out of the water. You saw it, and like to ignore it and go back in the water. I mean, it was, oh, then the great white's probably going to eat you at some point.
Yeah, and Glaber was a big part of it. He was. I mean, the way he ran the bases, the way he was mentally not in the game sometimes and making these laps.
It's the side. I think I highlighted when it happened is the side winding defensive play that gets by him. I think I highlighted he had done the same exact thing against Boston the year before and cost them a game. And it was like that lesson was never going to be learned. It just because you emphasize what's important, and it wasn't what was being emphasized from the top by the Yankees or individually by the players. And so I think one of the things we're seeing with this, what they're putting together here is, there's going to be this argument is like do all these, I keep seeing this fucking stupid argument about like, let's add everybody's war against Juan Soto's war. But that's not really how baseball's played.
No.
Like the Yankees tried to sign Juan Soto.
Absolutely.
They didn't sign Juan Soto. So you have a choice then. Do we go in the fetal position or do you try to put together another team like that team with Juan Soto won 94 games? The team they're building, I believe, looks like something that could win 94 games with generally good health. They would have to do it in another way. They're going to need a step forward, and who knows if they get it, from Volpe, Wells, a full season of Chisholm, Dominguez being a real player. These are question marks. But by the way, if they brought Soto back, we know what their payroll was going to be. They were going to be able to do very little else if they did that. And so you would have seen a very similar team, but you also would have then needed the Wells, Volpe, Chisholm, Dominguez thing. So I just think they didn't crawl into a tunnel and hope for the best. They've made some moves, and I think the moves have generally put them on a trajectory to be a very good team next year because only one team could have Juan Soto, and it turns out they're not the team.
Right. There's a couple things here. So you hit on, the kind of the plan B aspect of where the Yankees are right now and how they're currently activating that. But then there's the talking about recognizing the problems and issues in 2024. How do we address those? And these moves have seemed to have addressed some of those concerns, right? I think wrapping up the Goldschmid part of this, right? So you mentioned the payroll, right? The Yankees don't want to go over that 301. They didn't want to get in the Christian Walker territory. They didn't want to get in the Pete Alonso territory. But the Santana and the Goldschmid, the interesting thing is that $12 million slot. I saw reports that Goldschmid turned down more money. Is that true, Joel, that he did turn down more money to come to the New York Yankees?
Yeah, but like more money is also $13 million.
Okay.
Like, I mean, nobody was probably sitting out there with like, I think number one, Goldschmid had decided he's a 1 year at a time guy now. He wants to see how he feels at the end of each season. I think he doesn't want to embarrass himself. He's got a young family, the whole thing. And so I think he's playing this 1 year at a time. He decided there were clearly other offers. Once I talked to the NL Central guys, I realized, baseball still likes Paul Goldschmid. So it wouldn't surprise me if all the teams that were looking for a first baseman and had a certain salary slot said, there's, Vladimir Guerrero isn't available on the marketplace. I don't have the money for Pete Alonso or whatever. This is my general thing. I'll roll the dice that Goldschmid has something left. Again, I was somewhat surprised at how unanimous the feeling was from the now maybe I'm talking to all the wrong people, but I really limited it just to NL Central people.
Well, I guess the key question is, are they happy he's out of the NL Central now?
So you know what's funny is when you say that is like how many of the guys said they were happy Bellinger was out of the NL Central?
Right.
Because they said Bellinger was a guy who during a game helped the other team win. You know, because he was a good base runner, he's a good defender, he could hit for power, and that came up. So yeah, and a little bit of Devin Williams heard that also. But if I were playing the game, the two guys it isn't that I dislike the moves. It probably says something about how I feel about relief pitching in general. I feel a little queasier about Williams and Cruz than I do about Bellinger and Goldschmid.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So I
And
hear you.
That's basically because so one of the central guys said something interesting. He said, you know, in some ways he didn't say it exactly like this. So I want to be fair and say he didn't say it, but he was kind of telling me this, which was, you know, the AL East is a little more the big brother division than the NL Central. And he said, that's played out in every way, including like the relentless hunt for pitch tipping and stuff that maybe isn't done here. And you might know that the Mets seem to know what was coming from Devin Williams in the postseason. And I wonder for a guy who relies on his changeup as much as he does, and I just wonder if we're going to see a Tommy Kahnle type thing where the Yankees just say, don't throw anything else but throw that with him. If there is some, oh, you graduated, and also when you blow a save, it isn't quite Milwaukee anymore. There's probably going to be a different kind of something. So I'm always curious. I've heard that Williams is a tough competitor and a tough guy, but we'll say New York is a different animal than Milwaukee. And the one on Cruz is just like, I get it. Cruz is a stuff guy, but why does the ERA not reflect the stuff? And that was a guy who, two of the people I talked to in the NL Central said, I get the stuff, but it isn't like when he came in the game. We felt like when Devin Williams came in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing when I see the Fernando Cruz thing, to your point, you see the strikeout rate, and then you're wondering,
the peripheral stuff is very, but by the way, the walk numbers on both Williams and Cruz are very high.
So that's how you wonder, how does Mac Blake get him into the pitching lab and try to unlock that next part of them and turn them into the next Clay Holmes, turn them into the next Luke Weaver, right? But Devin Williams has already been successful. So like
Devin Williams has been one of the 5 best relievers in baseball for 4 or 5 years. So the question is, does it just translate seamlessly to New York in the AL East? Cruz is a guy who there's obviously, it's an interesting lump of clay. And this is an area, you know, we're very critical of the Yankees in a lot of areas. One of the areas they excel at is taking talented arm relievers, and suddenly you look up and you say, wow, like Jake Cousins is pretty good. Or Clay Holmes is a guy who could make almost $40 million in a free agent contract. And Luke Weaver is the best pitcher in the freaking world for a couple of weeks. And so, yeah, I am curious if they can kind of, because clearly there's something to work with there. Their strikeout numbers are at the very top of the sport. But those are the two, the Yankees needed to address the bullpen. And yeah, I think the trades were fine. But if I were starting to say which do I like the best, I really liked Bellinger. I think Goldschmidt was a smart play. I'm a little more dubious about relief pitching.
All right. So then I get my follow up here is, and this is something a little bit behind the scenes I wanted to ask you is, we all knew how high they were going to be on Juan Soto. Like that was their guy. They lost out in the bidding war. Plan B started. They got Max Fried. They do the Bellinger. They go Goldschmidt, all of this. When the Yankees finally got the word that they were going to lose out on Juan Soto, was this how they were going to attack Plan B? These players that we're talking about here, this is who they wanted here in Plan B, or was there even more to the list to see how those moves could play out?
So I think clearly Fried was at the very top of what they wanted to do. They pivoted so hard and definitively, and I know this from talking to people who represent Freed. This is Brian Cashman gets beat up a lot. All right, for a guy who's probably going to the Hall of Fame for what he's done, he gets beat up a lot. But the one of the agents said, not every executive knows how to close. Knows that, hey, I want the guy, I need to get to the finish line and can actually get there. And as we see, there's some organizations that are always monitoring or in it and don't get it. And you could say, well, the Yankees have the money. There's a lot of teams that have money or could have money, right? Like suddenly the Diamondbacks had a lot of money. They signed Corbin Burns. Everybody has money if you want it. And the Yankees did it. And I think if I could just take a little sideline road here, is I actually think Brian Cashman did, and his front office, right? Like, which gets a lot of criticism, has done. Remember, they are not dealing in the world you want. They are dealing in the world they have. And in the world they have, go back starting with Jameson Taillon and go look at how many 2, 3, 4 prospect trades they've made in the last 4 years. Alex Verdugo, Juan Soto, Anthony Rizzo, Joey Gallo. You could just go on. Scott Effross. Like that is over 30 prospects in a 4-year period. And so their farm system was down a little. The Yankees have completed more trades this offseason than any team. They've done 3 trades. And I think what they've done is crafty. They've used the depth on their major league roster. Nestor Cortez, Jose Trevino, right? Those are the kind of trades they've made. Cody Petit. They took advantage. I'm still shocked. I think we'll look back and say that there were teams out there that needed a position player. And if Cody Bellinger was available, they would pay him more than 2 years at $52 million. And yet somehow the 2 years at $52 million, because it was a player option in year 2, chilled the market for a very good player. And the Yankees kind of stepped in there and said, well, if nobody wants to spend, and most players kind of really don't want to go to Toronto, and that seemed to be the other team, and Bellinger and his agent seemed to be like, don't let him get traded there. They took advantage of, well, we have some money. We'll do that. And I think that they'll do it. So they've completed 3 trades without a farm system at the top. And I think that's pretty crafty when you think about it, because one of the things they do have to do is protect their system a little now. You don't want to, they're always playing for today. And when and it's just if he's healthy, Sandy Alcantara is available in July. If suddenly the Yankees need a starter, they're going to be in it with their prospects because they're playing for now. You got Judge and Cole, and how long will they be great players? But I actually think they've had a crafty offseason, considering there are financial limitations. I would remind, the story came out since we were on last. The Yankees' tax bill was $62 million last year. That's a real thing. Again, we're not going to put Tin Cup out for Hal Steinbrenner or anything, but like in his world where he has to deal with it, he has a $310 million payroll. He has a $62 million tax bill. I mean, he's spending almost $400 million on the payroll for last year. And my suspicion is the number will be, I think it's why one of the reasons he's trying to stay under that top tax this year is to see if he can lower that bill a little bit. Should he? He owns the Yankees. Whatever. It's a $300 million freaking payroll. Figure out how to win with a $300 million payroll. And so, I think that they've had a crafty offseason using a stupid market on Bellinger and the depth of what they had, a little starting pitching, a little catching, to go ahead and make some I think good trades.
Right, some good smart trades that was available. And I think you had hit on it, Joel, when we talked about the Bellinger stuff, is that the Yankees are going to wait this market out a little bit more because they're going to strike when they see the opportunity is right. And that's always, I feel like, been a Cashman MO the last couple of trade deadlines, especially, is like, I'm not going to adhere to these insane prices, even for free agent guys or even on the trade market. I'll wait you out because we're the Yankees. And yes, we have payroll that we could spend, but that doesn't mean we're just going to spend it. And yes, we have prospects that you probably want. No, we're not just going to give them to you for whatever X player that we're trying to acquire. So the other part is
And
now
just I'll
what's
throw
left.
this in is I think the Cubs understood that well enough. Also, I think the Yankees thought the Cubs should eat even more of Bellinger because there wasn't the market that was out there, and I think the Cubs finally just told the Yankees, "We are trading this player today. This is what it will take from you." And I think it came down to them or Toronto. He was being traded. The day Cody Bellinger was being traded, Cody Bellinger was being traded, and the only question was where. And I think the Yankees said, "Okay, we want this." He's such a Swiss Army knife for what that team, the Yankees, need, that maybe we could wait around and see if they'll eat 10 million instead of 5 million or 15, whatever they were asking. But we really want this player. Let's not lose out on the player for Cody Petit.
Right. No, I totally agree. So the next part of this is now what's next for the Yanks, right? So we've seen how they've addressed some of the bullpen concerns. They've addressed first base, outfield. But now there's that question, and you raised it with Gleyber Torres. Who's your leadoff hitter now? How do you handle that? And then that comes with second base, third base, because you have Jazz Chisholm, who could play either or. You know, we don't know how they're going to slot him. There's still the DJ LeMahieu factor. Oswaldo Cabrera, where does he fit in this equation? And then do they decide to go the trade market route to address that infield position of second or third? And you've thrown out Marcus Stroman. Again, an extra starting pitcher the Yankees have. He has a vesting option this year. Do they decide to trade him as well? So there's multiple parts here that still have to go. How do you see some of these moves playing out here for the Yanks as they go into 2025?
Yeah, so I think, again, an experienced front office did a valuable thing. Because, I would give high. Will it all work? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Paul Goldschmid is done. Maybe the industry is right about Cody Bellinger and it isn't worth as much. Maybe those relief pitchers will be as flammable as I offered some concern for. But all we have is the information in front of us. It's been a pretty crafty offseason. And one of the things that's crafty about it is they went out and did enough that if they do nothing else, they're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're a good team. They have a lot of good players. They have a history of knowing how to win games. They should be good. And by going out and doing everything they did before the new year, and really before Christmas, they allow themselves to be opportunistic. What becomes available for what amount? They could wait out the market. Teams are still going to need starting pitching when all the free agent starters are gone. They could very patiently wait. The Yankees have made trades in spring training, as we know, like for a bunch of years in a row.
Yeah.
Like they do this all the time. So they're not, they are not, if they show up in spring training and Marcus Stroman is the sixth starter, first of all, they'll have Marcus Stroman. And if on the fourth day of spring, Carlos Rodon goes, my elbow, they have Marcus Stroman. Right. And if not, they probably know the two or three teams that have some interest in that kind of player, how much money they'd have to eat or what bad contract they'd take back. So I think that that's kind of what they're doing now. They have put enough kind of like walls up that the ceiling won't fall. And now the question is, okay, now let's paint, if we can, let's paint the walls and see what's out there. I don't think they're done. I think clearly they'd probably like to find a left-handed reliever out there, but they kind of really bad moves they made last year were built around trading for two lefty relievers in the offseason, right? When they traded for Gonzalez and Ferguson, neither was very good. And yet they ended up with Tim Meza and Tim Hill, who were good. And so they're probably thinking, we're a good organization, and we'll figure out who Tim Hill and Tim Meza are. And they, by the way, it might be Tim Hill and Tim Meza who are free agents, right? And like the Yankees might be sitting there and going, I know what you're asking, but we've noticed it's just about to become 2025 and you're still not signed. Mm-hmm. So the number that we're offering might be good enough. Come back to us if it's good enough. I wouldn't be surprised. I know they like Tim Hill a lot. They probably have put a number on Tim Hill that Tim Hill would like to do better than right now. And so I think that they'll keep an eye out for lefties. I think they'll keep their eye out for one more infielder. It's very hard to find. And again, this is one of the problems of the trade they made. This is the cost of being at the top of the market. You're going to trade players. And if the worst of what you trade is like Trey Sweeney and why am I blanking on and Josh Smith?
Right.
But boy, lefty hitting infielders, like either of those guys would be starting at second or third base for the 2025 Yankees.
Yeah.
And costing $800,000. And in the case of Smith, if he is the guy who played last year, he'd be your leadoff hitter because he has on-base skills. Right? So trading those guys over the years has, and by the way, would have fit what the Yankees are trying to do. Speed, defense, all-around player. So those guys, like to get Victor Gonzalez and cost yourself Trey Sweeney, who ultimately is traded for Jack Flaherty, if you want to actually know what his real value might end up being, you could feel that those, by the way, those two are in the 30 prospects that they've traded over the last 4 years. Like it's hit into their system. They need one more infielder.
Yeah.
I think, and Yankee fans, cover your ears here. I think they're going to try to take another look at LeMahieu. And if they're taking a look at LeMahieu, I would think playing third base, where I think even when he was a bad hitter the last few years, he remained a very good third baseman. But, your corner infielders now are going to be mid-30 Paul Goldschmid, mid-30 LeMahieu, both of whom are not what they were. And is your backup plan Oswaldo Cabrera? Or is your backup plan, we'll figure it out when the season's going along? I don't think they've ever, because of the financial elements and maybe some other things, I don't ever think Bregman and Arenado have been close to real things.
Yeah, so the Arenado one is interesting, right? Like we heard the rumors, Arenado won't force a trade somewhere. We've seen him turn down the trade to the Astros already, right? So, but Arenado, we've heard, he's so close with Paul Goldschmidt. Will he, want to go wherever Paul goes?
Ironically, I think he's much closer to LeMahieu.
Interesting.
They were teammates in Colorado. I think they're best friends.
Is there really no chance of Nolan Arenado being a New York Yankee?
I think that I've learned over the years, I would tell this story is, one day I walked in the Yankee clubhouse and there was Roger Clemens, and I learned never say never to anything. And by the way, the Yankees were coming off a year where they won 114 games, and Roger Clemens was sitting in the clubhouse, and you were thinking like, oh, here's a team that needs nothing. Oh, there's Roger Clemens. And so I've learned, especially when it comes to the Yankees, one day Aaron Boone hurt his knee. A week later, they had Alex Rodriguez. It's like it's just who they are. They bring in players. So I never put anything at 0%. I will say that this entire offseason, even when people were overheated on the Arenado thing, that felt like totally modern bullshit where one person writes it and it catches on like wildfire. But I couldn't find anybody with the Yankees who would say, yeah, we're interested in him. And so I've got to follow my repertorial instincts and my work. And nobody was pushing hard on that. Nobody said, yeah, that's a thread you should go pull on a little bit, see what you find out, or however I do my job where people kind of like nudge me or whatever. Like I never heard that. I never sensed that they thought Bregman was a good long-term, as much as they think Bregman is a really good player who fits exactly what they're doing this offseason. It's going to take a minimum of 6, 7, 8 years to do. The ballpark is not built for what he does well. They have a lot of long-term money tied up now. Fried, Rodon, Cole, and Judge. I've never. Again, I deal in the world that seems to hit reality, and those were not like Bellinger was a guy when I kept saying to Yankee guys like, I mean, how long I've been pushing on the Bellinger thing. I'd say to Yankee guys like, Bellinger makes a ton of sense. And they go, yeah, like Bellinger makes a ton of sense. I'd say Arenado, and I would not.
It's just because the age and how much money is due to him as
Age,
well.
money. I would say that the trend line on a guy, as opposed to Goldschmid, if Goldschmid is awful, you're done with it in a year.
Right.
Right? Like you could be done with it by June. You could just release him and it's done. Right? Arenado, no matter what you trade or what is eaten, has 3 years left. And they're still paying Aaron Hicks this year for the last year.
Jeez.
They've got 2 more years of LeMahieu. I know all Yankee fans are in love with Stanton again because he had another great postseason. But like, if you were a Yankee fan and you had to go to Vegas and you had to say, Giancarlo Stanton makes it in a Yankee uniform to the end of his contract or not, would you bet yes or no? Right? Like these.
You would hope he's earned that right after how great he's been in the postseason.
Like at some point, a roster spot is important.
Yeah.
And if a guy is doing nothing or whatever, so I think the Yankees have a lot of like money tied up, and I think, like for example, first base was going to be a 1-year guy. And the Yankees probably. I don't know. I don't know if I would say that. I mean, if Bellinger has a really good year, he's going to opt out. And I'm sure they would hope he didn't opt out because for $27 million, he's worth it next year if he has a really good year. But they're probably fine with him opting out. They'd be out of him. They'd be out of Hicks. Devin Williams is a free agent. Goldschmid is a free agent. They always want to have money to burn and churn
right
at the end of every year. I never sense that they wanted to go long at third base. It just hasn't. I haven't heard it out of anyone's mouth. The idea of let's do that, and therefore, like, and I would, is Arenado a guy? He's now become miserable in 2 places.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, everyone becomes miserable in Colorado. And I'm like, okay, but he signed a long-term contract in Colorado. It felt like a basketball contract. Like I'm going to sign this is my second basketball reference, right? I'm going to sign the long-term contract and then try to get out of town as soon as possible, right?
It is how it's worked out for Arenado. So tell me if I'm crazy. I'm looking at other St. Louis Cardinals players. There's one that I'm really circling that I think could fit this team perfectly.
Oh, well, Brendan Donovan is a perfect player. If that's
right.
But again, like at this point, and I'm not saying St. Louis won't get rid of him, but I would think St. Louis, the Cardinals are trying to get rid of expense.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to open places. They're hoping that they have like a Mark Vientos moment with like Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman. Like they've had a lot of young players who have had good reps in the minors and little teases in the majors. Who Lars Nootbaar,
yeah.
So I think they want to play them all for 400 plus at bats and see what they have. And so Donovan never gets in the way of that because he's a Swiss Army knife.
Right.
He plays all over. And I think also the value of that player on July 31st will be spectacular. Like they traded Tommy Edman last year in July, who's a similar Swiss Army knife. And I actually think Donovan's better. And Tommy Edman's a very, very good player. So good that maybe the best organization just signed him long term off of a championship season. But the problem also becomes, and this is, you're a Yankee fan. If Brendan Donovan is available, the idea that the Yankees would get him shouldn't be front of mind because there are teams with better farm systems than the Yankees. And if and I knew who you were talking about without you saying it. Trust me, there'd be 20 teams lined up saying that player is such a Ben Zobrist kind of player.
Yes.
Helps us every day in every way. That the idea that the Yankees would be first in line with the current condition of their farm system, unless they're going to give up stuff they don't really want to give up for that kind of player, I don't see it.
Okay, he's the guy. Yeah, I know you know that. He's the guy that
Yeah.
I've wanted for a while now, and he'd be perfect for this Yankees situation. So who is going to be hitting leadoff now? I mean, Jazz. It seems like if the way you're hinting at it a little bit with DJ going back to third, Jazz would slide over to second. How does the lineup play out? What's the leadoff situation now with Gleyber Torres officially the Detroit Tiger? How is Ryan Cashman and Aaron Boone looking at this lineup?
Yeah, I don't think they have anything to find. I think in a perfect world, Anthony Volpe would figure out how to do it. That the guy we saw in the postseason who took nothing but good at bats would show up and good at bat. This is the good baseball thing. Like Anthony Volpe's at bats were mature, deep, accept the walk, use your speed at bats. And when the time came for power, he hit an important grand slam, right? Like if he played, here's the question I would ask about why I don't understand Anthony Volpe's swing. If Anthony Volpe used that swing and maximized it, how many homers would he hit?
Oh, probably like what, 25 to 30?
I don't think he gets to 30.
Okay.
But 25. If he were just a good swing guy, how many homers would he get? 15 to 20?
Mm-hmm.
That version of him is so much better
as
an offensive player. The idea of going for that and losing everything else, because you lose he stopped drawing walks this year until the postseason. And to me, you're losing one of the key elements of your game, which is your speed when you're not walking. So I think he would be in play. I think there's a potential if you want to move Judge back to 2 in the order. Can you lead it off Bellinger? Now, Bellinger's more of a swing guy, but that's fine because with Judge hitting second, he's probably going to get pitches to hit. And so do you open that kind of lefty power, especially at Yankee Stadium with Judge hitting behind him as a thing? Whatever it is, it's going to probably be 5 guys. And by the way, you know what there's going to be. LeMahieu's going to have 2 good weeks, and he's going to be hitting.
Oh no, Joel! Right. Don't say that. Don't say that.
But my point is, there is no and by the way, there is no Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
For them or for anyone, he was a one of a kind.
But Gleyber was good in the fact that he would take his walks, right? Like Gleyber was good
when he moved back to leadoff.
When he moved back to leadoff, right?
The first half of the season, the strikeouts were high and the walks were low. That last 7 weeks plus the postseason, once he went back to leadoff and started using, that's why I would argue, is Gleyber Torres better if he hits as many home? It would be 25 to 30. If he does it the way he did it from August 15th through October 30th or whenever the World Series ended, he'd hit 15 to 18 and just be a better offensive player. That is, and by the way, without Volpe's speed and base running abilities. So to me, Volpe should be Torres.
Yeah.
Volpe
that should be his approach.
That offensive player, because the marginal 5 to 10 homers, while valuable, aren't more valuable in this lineup, which will not hurt for power. My suspicion is, Josh Chisholm in Yankee Stadium for full season will probably hit 30 home runs. Stanton will play 110 games and hit 30 home runs. Judge will hit 40 plus. Goldschmid should probably hit 20 to 25.
Bellinger, hopefully 30.
Yeah, Wells, a full season, might hit 20, 25 homers. So, the Yankees are not going to be aching for homers.
No.
You need to play the game.
Yeah.
What does your team need? I believe Anthony Volpe has the offensive profile, if he allows it, to be something that looks like that postseason hitter. If he does, and suddenly you're doing Volpe, Bellinger, Judge. And Volpe, let's not go crazy. Volpe has a 330 on-base percentage. Forget about 350 or 370, which is the ideal. 330. But with speed. With 330, all 330s are in equal. If Giancarlo Stanton's 330 and Anthony Volpe's 330, they're not the same 330 because Stanton is a station-to-station player, but Volpe being on base one-third of the time has great value, right? Because also suddenly it's a distraction for guys like Bellinger and Judge. And
right.
now you're
Because
putting two speed guys in front of Judge.
because also let's not forget the Yankees wouldn't run in front of Soto and Judge. And trust me, I know Torres was not a burner.
Mistake, I think is a mistake.
Right, but that was their approach. So like we're not going to steal bases when our two best power hitters coming up.
Because they're card counters and they know if you hit a multi-run homer, your chances of winning a game go up dramatically. I get it. But not every situation is created equal.
Absolutely.
And if somebody would like to give you a free, by the way, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto were also good hitters.
Yeah.
You know, like Judge hit 300, Soto hit 290. It's okay to have a runner on second base. Like if somebody wants to walk you, now you have two guys on base. But if they don't, Judge and Soto could also get a base hit and score a run. Like the idea that the only way to win is with a 2 or 3 run homer. Again, it is the easiest way. Go look it up. I know fans generally don't love this version of the game. I don't love this version of the game. I'd rather watch athletes move. But I also would want to win. And if I ran a baseball team, I would make sure my team hit at least 200 homers in a season. You know, as many homers as possible are good. But at the expense of what? And like it's like 3-pointers are good in the NBA. Third basketball reference. 3-pointers are good in the NBA, but that doesn't mean your worst 3-point shooter should take a lot of them. Like
yes,
you know what I mean? It's like he might be a great offensive rebounder, passer, guy who sets picks. Like play to your strengths that help the team win the game. Don't just play math. Like, what is going to help you win the game? To me, the postseason version of Volpe helps them win so many more games than the guy who opens up his hips and tries to drive home runs to Death Valley at Yankee Stadium.
I agree with you, Joe, on the Volpe thing. However, I get worried and concerned that Volpe falls into that hole and that trap again of, oh God, I'm hitting in front of Bellinger or Judge, and I need to, I need to be Anthony Volpe. I need to be the leadoff hitter. I need to be the shortstop for the New York Yankees. Derek Jeter would hit 20 plus home runs a year. I can do that myself. Like, I don't know if it's a mentality thing, it's an approach thing. Like there's just that maturity that feels like it hasn't clicked for Volpe. Maybe he unlocked it in the World Series because it's hyper focused on every single game. But when it comes to a 162 game season, there's that marathon, and you have to be able to do that every single day. I just question if he just can't handle that moment every single day.
Yeah, but you mentioned Jeter, and Jeter was it's one of the things that bothered me when people would talk about like Jeter's war. And I'm like, fuck Jeter's war. Like you asked before, were there teams that hoped that were happy that like Goldschmid was out of the division or Bellinger? Go talk to teams that played against the Yankees in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, about who they didn't want up in a big spot. Like what that feeling was. I don't know if this will make sense. When Rickey Henderson died, I didn't think of a stat. And by the way, his stats are incredible. The walks, the on-base percentage, the leadoff homers, the stolen bases for sure, etc. I thought about the feeling of watching Rickey Henderson play baseball. If you were in the ballpark when Rickey Henderson played baseball, the feeling of him at the plate, the flair, the confidence, the fingers, the whole thing, but especially when he's on first base, you could feel the tension in the other team. You could feel the anticipation in the ballpark and the drama. Rickey Henderson was about all those numbers, but also about a feeling. Derek Jeter was like that, which was like, oh, here's you can want to like cherry pick it, but he was up with 2 outs and a runner on second base. You also felt like the other team saying, this freaking guy is up. And that's, I'm worried in a very logical wins above replacement world, have we lost that a little bit about that feeling you have about certain players And and knowing that the other team, the teams have it, the crowd has it, and Derek Jeter was a winning player. Anthony Volpe has it in him to become a better version of a winning player. A winning player. What does the game need? What does the team need? Derek Jeter was that. Derek Jeter was we lost yesterday's World Series game. Bobby Jones does this to open a game. I'm going to open up my hit. I'm going to try to drive a ball out of the ballpark. Got it. I got it. He felt the game. He felt the game. Again, fourth basketball reference. The other night, the Knicks are losing to a team they're much better than against Washington. And Brunson realizes, nobody's going to take this game over. I'm going to take this game over. And he hasn't done that every game this year, right? But he was like, okay, I'm not letting my team lose to the freaking, Washington. And that means that I'm going to have to dominate the ball in a way I haven't this year. I don't really want to, but this is what the game needs. This is what is needed to win the game. Feel the game. And I think Anthony Volpe has it in him to feel. He has a skill set to feel the game. He has a lot of talents. And to simply listen to some cookie cutter moron hitting fucking philosophy coach who says the only thing to do all the time, because it's the most valuable thing, is to try to drive a home run, is not to feel the game and understand what's needed in the fucking game to win it. And the other shortstop in town feels the game.
Yes.
Lindor feels what's needed to win a game. And of course, you need incredible talent to do that. But I would say Volpe is incredibly talented. Maybe not as talented as Lindor, who might go to the Hall of Fame, but pretty talented. And I think smart enough, and was drafted as that kind of player. And
let's not forget, he's only 20. He's going to be 24 next year.
He has the capacity. If we were making a list of who are the most important Yankees right now, he would be near the very top of the list, because he has the capacity to solve an issue that you and I are sitting here on December 30th going, there is no clear-cut answer. But Anthony Volpe can actually answer that. And just to reiterate, not by being even great at it, 330 on base percentage. 330, that's the number. Because I also think he
was 293 last year.
330. Get on base 1 out of every 3 times you're at the plate. If he does that, he's the leadoff hitter. If he is the guy in the postseason who it's God damn it, he's only swinging at strikes, he's accepting his walks. It is one of the clearest ways the Yankees get over Soto.
Yeah, and you're hitting on it right there. It's how they get on base. That's what they got to do, because they got to put guys on base in front of Judge like they do. That's how they're the best. And
they have to put on guys on base so Judge comes around again. You got to make sure that Judge. How many times I say this last year? The key to the Yankee offense is Judge and Soto have to bat 10 times, right? Because when you think about any 10 at bat period for Judge and Soto, what's the chances that they won't do damage in 10 plate appearances combined? Maybe they'll do it in 8, but I'd rather get it to 10. The idea of that 5th plate appearance every game. So part of the Yankees has to be, let's make sure Judge gets a 5th plate appearance. And that's about long lineup, turning it over, churning through pitches. It's the same thing as you want to make sure it's going to be with the Mets.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom of the Mets order, make sure that Lindor and Soto bat 10 times.
Yeah. There's those questions, right? The questions that we've talked about. It's what do they do at third? If it's DJ LeMahieu, he can't rely. He's like Giancarlo Stanton to me. You can't rely on him to finish the season.
It's 110 games.
Yeah.
If it went perfect, it's 110 games. But so I think they have an issue there, because you can't trust him at third. But I wouldn't want to jerk Chisholm around. I want to either say you're my third baseman or you're my second baseman.
Right.
Right? Though he could do both, I think he has to work at third base to get better at it. The Yankees seem so. There's again the eye test versus whatever outs above average is. Like outs above average, love Chisholm, and that's because Chisholm could do spectacular stuff at third base already, but he can mess up the fundamentals pretty well. And so to me, if he's going to be their third baseman, then plant him at third base and say, you're a third baseman, and start from February 15th or February 10th, whatever they get there this year, and say, here's how to be a good fundamental third baseman, besides doing this stuff, spectacular stuff that we appreciate. But then I think he's got to be the third baseman. The problem is I don't think LeMahieu has anything like he does. He just needs first step burst, which he still seemed to have at third base and able to handle third base. I don't see how he helps you at second. And so then if you don't solve second, do you end up with like Peraza Cabrera if you don't do it? And do you want to roll the dice on Peraza Cabrera?
They've highly touted Peraza for how many years now?
Yeah, I mean, they highly touted Jesus Montero at one time. It doesn't matter who you highly tout, like again, you live in the world that is not the one you hope for. And so I think I think they've laid down we could win a lot of games like this. I'm curious what they do. I think if Chisholm's going to play third base, then Chisholm has to play third base. And I wouldn't play around. I'd be like, I'm old enough to remember spring training in 2004 when Alex Rodriguez came in, and every morning, I'd watch Craig Nettles and Larry Boa work with Alex Rodriguez. You can say whatever you want about Alex Rodriguez, but that guy didn't want to embarrass himself on a baseball field. And the Yankees, who run like a Stalag, it's hard to get in. I would sneak in, and A-Rod also was a guy, because of his insecurities and ego, if he knew you were watching him, he'd try to put on a show. So I would sneak in and just watch him from a place where he couldn't see me, and watch the work he was putting in with those two guys. Greg Nettles and Larry Boa. Larry Boa was one of the better coaches of the last 50 years. Greg Nettles was a great third baseman, especially for the Yankees. And he taught himself to become a good third baseman. Didn't want to catch a pop-up, but he could handle all the stuff on the ground. He was a technically good player. The Yankees need that level of seriousness with Chisholm at third base this spring, with him at third base and with Dominguez wherever they're putting him.
Is he going to play center?
I don't know. I don't know what that look is, because, again, the question becomes if Dominguez isn't a player, and I'm sure Bellinger could do it, do you want to start with Bellinger in left and say, Dominguez didn't work, we'll put you in center? Or just say, Bellinger plays center, Dominguez will play left. Though, as we know, left field in Yankee Stadium is pretty tough, is a beast, and he didn't do it real well last year. So is he more comfortable in center? Whatever it is, he should be doing it right this second. Jazz Chisholm should be doing it right. Like, the defense has to be worked on as much as the offense.
Yeah, especially when you sign a guy like Max Fried, who's going to have ground balls hit to third base a bunch there.
Yeah, the fourth highest percentage of ground balls to third base in the major leagues last year was by Max Fried. So the ball's going to – think of him like Andy Pettitte. He's going to throw breaking balls into righty hitters. They're going to turn it over, and it's going to be hit to the shortstop and third baseman an awful lot. And your shortstop and third baseman have to be good when Max Fried is on the mound. And I think the way they are shaped right now, they should just put Chisholm at third base and say, Jazz, we are challenging you to win a Gold Glove at third base. And winning a Gold Glove at third base is not about the spectacular, though you can do that. It's about making sure that you're in the right place on all the cutoffs, that the routine is routine, and that you are in the game. You are in the game. Like Nolan Arenado is in the game.
Yeah.
Like, besides all the crafty stuff he could do as a third baseman, great hands, true arm, the whole thing. So I think part of the spring training for the Yankees has to be part 2 of this offseason, which is we brought in a certain kind of player. You are what you emphasize. Spring training can't just be, well, we checked off a box. We did the cutoff plays. We did the base running. That's not box checking. It's every day in every way saying this. Remember how we lost. You could literally side saddle a throw in from the outfield and your season will be over. Your season will be over because of it. Don't do it. Every day in every way, we need to play the game the right way. By the way, all 30 teams should be doing this. This shouldn't be a Yankee thing.
No.
There should be pride taken in playing baseball well. But the Yankees know that they're probably going to be a very good team, and the separator with the Dodgers was about playing baseball well.
Yeah, and I would hope that a lot of the Yankees players in that clubhouse listen to what the Dodgers were saying this offseason after the World Series, take it into heart, take some humble pie, as the famous Aaron Rodgers likes to say, eat it, and be like, all right, we're going to get better, and we're going to be better. And we got to move into 2025 and be that better defensive team and work on the fundamentals and actually preach the fundamentals to each other and be on top of each other when, hey, you side saddle that throw. Hey, you weren't in the right spot in the cutoff. You got to be there. That's got to be that mentality.
I put a lot of weight on Judge, man.
It's Judge, and you would hope a new guy like Goldschmid can raise their level there and bring that mentality to those guys.
Judge is the captain, and his voice is very, very respected, and maybe he's very respected because he's positivity. But like, I'm not exactly sure CC Sabathia and Brett Gardner were ever replaced on the team for the tough Sarge kind of guy. Like, I think you need an asshole in the clubhouse a little bit.
I feel like Stanton can be that guy, but he just isn't in the clubhouse enough, you know?
And also it's like tough for a pitcher or DH to be that guy. I think it's got to be a guy who plays every day. Can't be like the backup catcher or, you know. I remember like David Cohn was in a lot of ways the spokesman for the great Yankee dynasty teams. You know, in part because he was willing to. He was from Kansas City, but he was a New Yorker in every way. He understood it. He wanted to be a reporter when he was a kid. Like, he understood our jobs and stuff, and he was really good at it. I think him and Chili Davis were really good in the clubhouse, and it was I think it's bizarre, like Jeter was young still. Bernie was a very quiet player. O'Neill was kind of like a self-flatulating kind of guy. It was very strange to have a starting pitcher and a DH, as important as those guys were for some of those years. But it's strange. You need an everyday player. And in this case, the everyday player is the captain of the team. And I think he needs to tell guys when they're not doing things well that it's not always a pat on the back, that sometimes you do need a kick in the ass.
Well said, Joel. Well said. Listen, we appreciate you giving us all your time, breaking down these Yankees moves, what could be potentially coming forward for the Yankees as they head into get ready for spring training. I know, like you said before, there's always that potential the Yankees can make a trade in spring training, and I know we'll be talking about it with you.
The Yankees, if they made it on New Year's Eve, I wouldn't be surprised. So, you know.
Exactly. Joel, have a happy New Year. We're looking forward to doing this again next year. We'll talk to you then. We'll be at the New York Post studios, which is pretty awesome. And I'm sure I'll be talking from you there. And yeah, man, we're looking forward to another baseball year for us in the New York Post. And we're looking forward to your coverage all throughout the year, man.
You know, you and your family as well, Ryan. And also, look, we've created a bit of a following here. And to those people who've been nice enough to take their time to watch this and to follow us and support this, so that we will be doing it from that new studio in the new year. Happy, healthy to you and your families as well.
Thank you, Joel. We'll talk to you soon. All right, man?
All the best.